My name is Eleanor. I am 72 years old, and I want you to stop for a moment because what I am about to say is not something most women are ready to hear. Men don't stop calling you because you're older. They stop calling you because something has changed, not in your face, not in your body, in your energy. Now I know that sounds vague, maybe even unfair. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you are going to understand something very clearly. And once you see it, you will never look at dating the same way again. There are 5 reasons why men slowly disappear from your life after 60. And the last one is the truth no one ever tells you. Because if they did, most relationships wouldn't survive it. Let me be clear, I am not here to blame men, and I am not here to blame you. I am here to tell you what actually happens, not what people say, not what sounds nice, but what is real, because I lived it more than once. Let's start with the first reason, and this one hides in plain sight. Reason number 5. You are no longer pretending. When you were younger, you tolerated things. You ignored red flags. You stayed quiet to keep the peace. You laughed when something bothered you. You adjusted, compromised, bent yourself into shapes just to make a relationship work. But after 60, you stop doing that. And that changes everything. Let me tell you about a man named Victor. He was 67, charming, confident, the kind of man who knew exactly what to say. We met at a small gathering. Nothing fancy, just a few people, some wine, soft music. He walked over, smiled, and within 10 minutes, I could tell he had done this 100 times before. We started seeing each other. At first, it was easy, light, comfortable, but then little things started to show. He would cancel plans last minute. He would call late at night, but disappear during the day. He would talk about himself endlessly and ask very little about me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't ignore it. I didn't explain it away. I didn't tell myself, well, at least he's trying. I looked at him and I said something simple. This doesn't work for me. Do you know what happened? He didn't argue. He didn't try to fix it. He just stopped calling, gone, just like that. And I remember sitting there thinking, what just happened? But the truth was simple. He didn't leave because I was too much. He left because I was no longer willing to accept less. And that is the first shift. After 60, you stop negotiating your standards, and men who benefit from low standards, they disappear, not because you failed, but because you finally stopped playing the game. Ask yourself something. How many things did you tolerate in your 30s that you would never accept today? Exactly. And that's why the pattern changes. Not because you are less desirable, but because you are no longer available for the wrong kind of connection. And that leads to the second reason. This one is harder to admit. Reason number 4. You don't need him anymore, and men can feel that. Even if you never say it out loud, they feel it. When you were younger, relationships were survival, emotional survival, financial sometimes, social. You needed partnership to build a life, to raise children, to feel secure, to feel chosen. But after 60, something shifts. You already built your life. You already survived. You already lost and found yourself again. You have your routines, your peace, your independence, and that changes the energy you bring into a relationship. You're no longer searching. You're observing. You're no longer hoping. You're evaluating, and men, especially men who are used to being needed, they feel that distance. Let me tell you about someone named Carl. He was 71, recently divorced, lonely, the kind of loneliness that sits heavy in a man. We met through mutual friends, and very quickly he attached himself to me, calling every morning, texting throughout the day, wanting to see me constantly. At first, I thought he's just interested, but then I realized something deeper. He wasn't interested in me. He was afraid of being alone. There's a difference, and because I had already faced loneliness in my life, I didn't panic. I didn't rush to fill his space. I didn't rearrange my life to make him comfortable. And slowly, his behavior changed. He started pulling back, becoming distant, less consistent. And one evening, he said something that stayed with me. He said, "I feel like you don't really need me." I smiled and I said, "I don't." Silence. That silence told the whole story, because what he was really saying was, if you don't need me, I don't know what my role is. And that's the truth many people avoid. Some men don't want a partner. They want a purpose. They want to feel necessary, important, needed. And when you show up as a complete woman, not looking to be saved, not looking to be filled, it unsettles them, because now they have to offer something real, not attention, not presence, but depth, consistency, accountability, and many, many are not prepared for that. So what do? They slowly disappear, not dramatically, not with confrontation, just less calls, less effort, less presence, until one day, nothing, and you sit there wondering, what changed? Nothing changed. You just stopped playing the role. That made them comfortable. And that leads us to something even deeper, because this one is quiet, subtle, but incredibly powerful. Reason number 3, you no longer have the energy for emotional confusion, and that alone filters out most men. When you were younger, you had the capacity to analyze everything, to overthink, to replay conversations, to ask yourself, what did he mean by that? Why did he say that? Is he pulling away or am I imagining it? You had the energy to stay in uncertainty, to chase clarity, to fix what felt unstable. But after 60, something changes. You don't want confusion. You don't want guessing. You don't want emotional puzzles. You want peace. And peace does not come from inconsistency. Let me tell you about a woman named Sandra. She was 65, strong woman, independent, the kind of woman who had rebuilt her life twice. She met a man. At first, he was attentive, present, engaging. They spoke every day. He made plans. He showed interest. And then, like it always happens, something shifted. He became unpredictable. Warm one day, cold the next, present, then gone. She called me one evening, and I could hear it in her voice, that old familiar tension, that uncertainty. She said, "I don't understand what's happening." And I asked her something simple. "How do you feel after talking to him?" There was a pause, and then she said, "Exhausted." That was the answer. Not confused, not curious. Exhausted. And that's the difference. When you're younger, confusion feels like excitement. When you're older, it feels like a burden. And Sandra did something most women struggle to do. She didn't chase clarity. She chose peace. She stopped responding. She stopped engaging. She stepped back completely. Do you know what happened? He didn't fight for her. He didn't show up. He didn't try to explain. He disappeared, just like that. And for the first time, she didn't feel rejected. She felt relieved, relieved that she didn't have to carry the weight of uncertainty anymore. And that's the truth. Many men don't leave because you're not enough. They leave because you are no longer willing to carry emotional chaos. You don't entertain inconsistency. You don't reward confusion. You don't chase what feels unstable. And when you remove that space, they have nowhere to stand. So they disappear, not because you failed, but because the dynamic they relied on no longer exists. And that brings us to something deeper, something most women don't realize until much later. Reason number 2, you are no longer easy to benefit from. And this one is uncomfortable. Because nobody likes to admit that sometimes people stay not because of love, but because of advantage. When you were younger, you gave more than you realized. Time, energy, care. You adjusted your schedule. You showed up. You supported. You carried emotional weight without even noticing. And many men became very comfortable in that space. But after 60, you see it clearly. You notice when the effort is one-sided. You notice when you're the one always giving. You notice when someone takes more than they bring, and something inside you says, no more. Let me tell you about a woman named Patricia. She was 70, kind, generous, the kind of woman who always made space for others. She met a man. He was charming at first, attentive, present, but slowly, patterns started to show. He needed help, always something, a ride, a favor, a loan, a place to stay just for a while. At first, it felt natural, normal. That's what you do for someone you care about, right? But over time, she started to feel something different, not love, not connection, but weight, responsibility, like she had taken on a role she never agreed to. One day, she looked at her life and realized something painful. She wasn't in a relationship, she was in a support system. And the moment she pulled back, the moment she stopped giving, everything changed. He stopped calling, stopped visiting, stopped trying, gone. And that's when it became clear. He wasn't there for her. He was there for what she provided. And when that disappeared, so did he. That realization, it hurts because it forces you to see that not everyone who stays is staying for you. Some are staying for comfort, convenience, support, and after 60, you stop offering that for free. You stop overgiving, you stop proving, you stop carrying. And men who rely on that, they don't adapt. They leave because the dynamic they depended on no longer exists. And that brings us to the most important reason, the one that changes everything, the one that most women never fully face until it's too late. Reason number 1, and this is the truth, most people will never say out loud. Men stop calling you because you stop choosing them out of fear. Let that sink in. When you were younger, a part of you was afraid. Afraid of being alone, afraid of not being chosen, afraid of losing someone, even if they weren't right for you. So you stayed longer. You tolerated more. You gave second chances, third chances, endless chances, not because they deserved it, but because the alternative felt worse, being alone. But after 60, you face something most people avoid. You face yourself. You sit in your own silence. You sit in your own company. And slowly, something shifts. You realize being alone is not the same as being lonely. And that realization changes everything. Because now You are no longer choosing from fear. You are choosing from clarity. Let me tell you about a woman named Ruth. She was 73, and she told me something I will never forget. She said, I stayed in relationships for years, not because I was happy, but because I was afraid of the quiet. The quiet. Think about that. So she filled her life with noise, calls, messages, conversations that went nowhere, connections that drained her just to avoid sitting with herself. But one day, everything stopped. No calls, no messages, no distractions, just silence. And at first, it terrified her. She told me, I didn't know what to do with myself. So she did something small. She sat. No phone, no television, no noise, just her. And for the first time in her life, she listened to her thoughts, her feelings, her truth. And what she discovered changed her forever. She wasn't empty. She was exhausted. Exhausted from years of choosing others over herself. Exhausted from performing, adjusting, proving, giving. And in that silence, she didn't feel lonely. She felt free, free from expectations, free from emotional labor, free from the need to be chosen. And when she stepped back into the world, she was different. Calm, grounded, whole. And something interesting happened. Men still approached her, but she didn't respond the same way. She wasn't trying to be liked. She wasn't trying to be chosen. She was observing, evaluating, and most of them didn't meet her where she stood, so she let them go. Easily, without drama, without regret. And that is the truth. Men don't stop calling you because you lost your value. They stop calling you because you stopped lowering it, because you stopped chasing, stopped proving, stopped tolerating, stopped needing. And that changes the entire dynamic. Now, let me bring this together for you. Number 5, you stopped pretending. Number 4, you no longer need them. Number 3, you don't tolerate emotional confusion. Number 2, you're no longer easy to benefit from. And number 1, you stopped choosing from fear. So ask yourself something, not, why don't men call me? Ask yourself this, what am I no longer willing to accept? Because that answer, that is your power, not your age, not your appearance, not your past, your standards, your boundaries, your clarity. That is what changed, and that is why everything else changed with it. Now here is what I want you to do. Sit quietly for a moment and ask yourself, if I truly respected myself, what would I stop tolerating today? Would you stop answering late-night calls? Would you stop explaining your worth? Would you stop chasing conversations that go nowhere? Would you finally choose peace over attention? Because this chapter of your life is not about being chosen anymore. It's about choosing yourself fully, without apology, without fear, without compromise. You are not here to fill someone's loneliness. You are here to live your truth. And if someone enters your life, they should add to your peace, not replace it. And if no one comes, you are still whole, still complete, still deeply worthy of love. Do you understand that? You are not waiting anymore. You are living, and that changes everything. Now tell me, have you ever felt this shift? Drop your answer below. And if this spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because most women don't realize this until it's too late, and I don't want that to be you.